Simon O'Connor.
Mr Speaker, very pleased to take a call on this first reading on this Wednesday evening on the Royal New Zealand Foundation of the Blind Act. It's a repeal bill, as has been noted. Look, its purpose is relatively simple. It is to ultimately strike a piece of legislation off the books and to enable the Foundation to stand completely independently, if you will, of Parliament by engaging now as a fully incorporated society. Can I begin, though, by acknowledging the members of the Royal Foundation and for the great work that they do in the community. I've had good reason to engage with them from time to time, back up in Auckland, usually through friends and acquaintances who work there and speak incredibly highly of the organisation. But acknowledging too, in my short time here in Parliament, those from the Foundation that have come before Parliament to advocate for the blind, for those visually impaired, and have always done it in a very constructive manner. And I think most recently in the education sector, as we did a review of parental engagement, and we had people from the Royal Foundation come in and explain to us how, access is something as simple as, what we take as relatively simple of PDF documents to actually format it in such a way from school so that parents can read and be fully engaged with their children, be it the child or the parents have visual impairment. So again, it's with thanks that I take this call for that work, that support, and for the advocacy that is done. As we've heard from the two previous speakers, and primarily from Tim McIndoe, who led this off, the bill is here to deliver on an ambition of the Foundation, the Blind Foundation as it's known, to modernise its structure. And I think one element I've been struck with looking through the history of the Royal New Zealand Foundation of the Blind is it has evolved over time. And if I can indulge my own historical interest, and perhaps that of Paul Foster Bell, who's with me here, 1889, it was actually a meeting of the Bishop of Auckland. I assume that's the Anglican Bishop of Auckland, who called together what was an association of friends of the blind. And from there, a year later, it turned into the Jubilee Institute for the Blind, which I imagine... The Jubilee of? Well, I'm not 100% sure, actually, but it'll be one of the Royal Jubilees, I'm sure, which led to 1908, the Jubilee Building in Parnell, which is actually one I lived very close to. You never know, actually. But actually, the Jubilee Building is remarkably well known in Auckland. Whether it's absolutely known with its association to the Blind Foundation, I'm not 100% sure. I know the Foundation now is based next door to it. But the Jubilee Building is now taken over by council, and the community comes together there. And I think there's actually strong and good symbolism in that, but that was one of my little learnings. As I also went through the history, I noted in 1927 that the New Zealand, then known as the New Zealand Institute for the Blind, set up a military band. That was, a little learning. I think I have always associated the likes of seeing eye dogs and the like with the Foundation, not necessarily a military band. In 1955, there was then an Act of Parliament, and that's which we're beginning to repeal this evening. So an Act of Parliament was passed in order to regulate and work for the Foundation. In 1972, the Foundation received royal patronage. I believe Her Royal Highness the Princess Alexandra was out and gave over that royal patronage. In 2002, as we heard from Potter Williams, there was a review to the Act of Parliament. And then in 2015, the Foundation has celebrated 125 remarkable years. And in that time, as this little bit of history is touched on, it has evolved, it has changed, and now seeking via this repeal of legislation to modernise itself further. But Mr Speaker, what I think is clear through all 126 years is that the desire to form a strong community of like-minded people, the common bond around visual impairment and blindness, to be able to live their lives as they see fit and to advocate into the New Zealand community, that we understand not only their situation but allow them to be the Kiwis that they want to be. And so I support this bill and, like others, commend it and look forward to it coming to the Select Committee.